All right, thank you for joining us today. And in this video, we are going to talk about inverse of a function, the journey of further calculus. Come on, man, let's jump right in. So, we want to first talk about inverse of a function, right? And for us to solve or for us to find the inverse of a function, I'm going to give you some 3 steps or 4 steps that is going to guide you, so that you can try to when you are trying to find inverse of a function, is going to guide you to go through the process. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is, let's assume that the function given to you is f of x. The first thing that we need to do is we need to let y to be equal to f of x. We have some functions that is already y, then you don't need to take the first step because it's already y, right? Now, if it is gen of x, the same thing, let y is equal to gen of x. Now, what's the next step? The next step is interchange x and y. Then you solve for what? Y, by making y the subject. Very simple. Interchange x and y and then solve for y by making y the subject. That's the second step. Now, let's look at the third step. Now, the third step is the final simplification is the inverse of the function. So after you have interchanged x and y and you solve for y, like doing the simplification and everything, the final answer that you are going to get is going to be like y is equal to. So the y is equal to, that becomes the f inverse of x, right? So this is the 3 steps that's going to guide us, when we are trying to find inverse of a function. Let y is equal to x as f of x, interchange x and y, then solve for y, make y the subject, and then your final simplification is your f inverse of x. Let's take one simple example and let's go through the process together to see how we can solve it using these steps. So now let's assume that we have f of x which is equal to this and we want to find the f inverse. Good. So what are we going to do? The first step is let y equals f of x. So we let y to be equal to f of x, right? So when we let y to be equal to f of x, we are going to have 2x plus 1 divided by x minus 1, right? So this is what you are going to have. Now, the next step is for us to interchange x and y. When you say interchange x and y, it means that you see that we have x here, we have x here, we have y here. So what we are going to do is we are going to replace all the x by y and replace all the y by what? X. So that is the interchange of x and y. So here will be x is equal to 2y plus 1 divided by y minus 1. So this is what we are going to have after we have interchanged x and y. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to solve for y, right? We need to solve for y. So now let's do it together. We assume that this guy here is divided by 1. So when you do cross multiplication, this will multiply this and this will multiply this. So we are going to have x open bracket y minus 1, which is equal to 2y plus 1. Now we want to make y the subject. We can see y here, y here. So we need to simplify this and group like terms. So x, y, when I multiply this by this and this by this, I'm going to have minus x, which is equal to 2y plus 1. Right. Now let's group like terms. We can see that we have y here, we have y here. So here we can do like plus 2y and then we can do like we can subtract 2y here and add sorry. We can subtract 2y here and subtract 2y here, right? Or in other terms, you can say move 2y to this side. But when we are moving 2y to this side and it cross the equal to sign, becomes negative, but it's the same thing. So the idea is very simple. Just subtract 2y here and subtract 2y here, right? Then when we finish, we need to move this guy to this guy here. So since this is minus x, we are going to add plus x to this side and then also plus x to this side. Or we can say move negative x to this side, which becomes what? Positive. So that is the same thing. So I'll have x, y. So when I move the 2y, I'm going to have negative 2y. Or the idea is that when I subtract 2y here and subtract 2y here, you see that 2y will cancel 2y. So it means that on the right hand side, we are not going to have 2y again, right? So now we are going to have to be equal to 1 plus x. So here is the idea of me adding plus x here, adding plus x here. So this will cancel this. And so it means that on the left hand side, we are not going to have x again, and then on the right hand side we are going to add plus. Then let's factor y out, which is going to give us x minus 2, because when I factor y out here, the idea is like you want to divide this one by y, divide this one by y, when you factor it out. So this one will cancel this one will cancel this, and it will be left with what is in the bracket here. So you are going to have 1 plus x, right? Then now we need to make y the subject. So I will divide both side by x minus 2 and divide this one too by x minus 2, right? So when I do that, this one will cancel this, and the left hand side will be left with y, and then the right hand side will be 1 plus x divided by x minus 2. So as we said, after we've make y the subject, so we can see that y is standing alone here. So we've make y the subject. We are saying that our final simplification is the f inverse. So it means that f inverse of x is equal to 1 plus x divided by x minus 2. So this is the process, how to make sure if a question is being asked to find the inverse of the function. This is what you need to do. Let y to be equal to f of x. If your function is g of s, k of x, any function, if it's already y, then you don't need to do the first step. You start from here, because if the function given to us is this, then the first step is to just interchange x and y and just solve. Now it is your turn to take some example, to practice. But the next video we are going to take example, we are going to do more examples, we are going to practice, because practice make a man perfect. And then one thing that I like is pause the video and you try. When you finish, play the video to check if you are getting on the same track. If maybe you don't understand some process, then you play the video along for you to understand the tips and then the skills. Because as I'm solving, and I'm giving some tips and some strategies that you can use to solve math. See you in the next video.